You will hear a lot from Senate Democrats, from House Democrats about the fact that American health care policy is broken. So if they want to talk about how to fix American health care policy, let's do it. And the fact that they refuse to do that shows how unreasonable their position is. I think we're headed to a shutdown because the Democrats won't do the right thing. I hope they change their mind.
That's Vice President J.D. Vance signaling the government will likely shut down tonight just after midnight as Democrats are refusing to support the Republicans' continuing resolution without adding hundreds of billions of dollars in health care spending. They want to bring back the spending that was underway during COVID. The Senate will vote today on the House-passed bill keeping government funded until into November. The upper chamber rejecting plans from both Republicans and Democrats earlier this month. Joining me now is Florida Senator Ashley Moody. Senator, good to see you. Thanks very much for being here. And the White House is warning of government layoffs, big job cuts should the operation shut down. What can you tell us? What's the latest on this?
I think it's important to remember that the Republicans are putting forth and will continue to put forth for a vote a clean CR, which keeps funding the government at its current levels for 7 weeks so that we can finish the bipartisan appropriations process and dig into the spending. We know every year we keep putting this country more in debt. Let's dig in. Let's look at healthcare. How can we make sure it's keeping these programs that are going to our most vulnerable operating? How can we make sure we're rooting out the waste? And the Democrats just want to hold this up and make sure they are adding more than $1 trillion in additional spending for illegal immigrants or woke priorities. I mean, it's insane what they're demanding. I think Thune should just keep putting this up for a vote. We'll keep voting to fund the government and keep our military working, keep our Border Patrol agents working, putting the interests of this country first, and they can keep voting against it, which shows their interests lie with illegal immigrants and hosing the American taxpayers in favor of those that shouldn't be put first by them.
So what is the specifics that they want on illegal immigrants, Senator? I mean, I know the policy fight is also about the expiring year-end Affordable Care Act, Obamacare subsidies for 22 million Americans. That's $30 billion a year. What is the political fight around illegals?
Well, they want you to believe that this is all surrounding health care. Remember, the Republicans are trying to make sure that we are taking into interest the American people and their needs. We put $50 billion into a rural health care fund to take care of people, and they voted against that. We're trying to make sure that these programs are working and there's not waste, fraud, and abuse. In fact, Thune has said, let's look at them. Let's take the time and make sure that they're working. And they don't want that because they want us to inflate spending because we're being held hostage at the 11th hour, and they can push in there all of this superfluous spending that goes to illegal immigrants, in many instances goes to those that don't want to work, and that we've tried to root that out, goes to keep funding programs where most of the people in some of these roles don't even know they're getting benefits. They don't even make claims. They're just signed up. So it's important that we take the time that's necessary to dig in and do this. And I think Leader Thune has made a good point. Let's fund the government. Let's keep our military working. Let's keep our government workers on essential programs working, in addition to those that we're moving this country in the right direction, shoring up the strength of this nation and our communities. Let's not shut the government down. Let's keep going. The Senate's been productive. We've already passed off 3 appropriations bills. Let's double down and do the work for the American people like we promised when they sent us here to Washington.
How significant are you expecting these job cuts to be, Senator? I mean, the White House is warning that we're going to see lots of job cuts. We're going to see layoffs as a result of any government shutdown. Will they be permanent? Is this an opportunity to make government even smaller?
Well, what I think they've been clear about is this is an opportunity to look at, as we will have essential people still working, it's an opportunity to look at. Remember, we're still funding, even when we continue this for 7 weeks, we'll still be funding it at levels from the Biden administration. And as you have seen from some of the rescissions bills sent over, there was so much waste in there. In fact, there were programs that were benefiting other foreign nations like climate resilience in Honduras or programs like that that weren't even going to to promoting the interests of this country. And I think what they're saying is this will give us an opportunity to look at, are these activities and employees that are going towards what our priorities are, what we need to do among our agencies. And I really just think it'll be a looking at, are these things that were part of programming that made no sense, were not in the interests of this country, were actually in many instances working against the interests of our country, and the taxpayers were being hosed to support that. I think this administration has been very clear. We want to be efficient in how we're spending our money. We want to make sure that it's done in a way that's promoting American interests and the American taxpayers are respected. And I think they'll continue to do that when they look at the employment workforce.
Senator, you secured the passage of the Ending Improper Payments to Deceased Peoples Act. Okay, you got to explain this one to me. Why are we sending payments to people who are deceased?
I think this is a great example of how you have so many now, the administration, certainly the Trump administration, and so many of us in Republican caucus that are ready to go, okay, if we keep going into debt like this, we're going to break our country. We're $37 trillion in debt. Let's go back and make sure our agencies are sharing information. I've been meeting with people time and time again from agencies that say one of the biggest challenges we have is every agency is operating in silos. They're not sharing information. So you could have a deceased persons list out of Social Security Administration that never gets communicated to the Department of Treasury. That absolutely needs to happen. That needs to be a permanent mandate, not just a temporary one. And so I'm excited to dig into projects like that. Again, I'm one of the newest U.S. senators here, and some of the way we do things does not make sense. It's certainly not in the interests of the American taxpayer. And today, on full display, will be, we want to start doing that. We want to fund this government. We want to focus on the things that is important to this country. The Democrats will vote against it and against it because this will be a Schumer shutdown that is about superfluous spending and scheming with radical left groups, so it plays into their narratives. No. We want to take responsibility for running this nation in a responsible way, and we're going to do that today.
Kevin McCarthy was on Fox yesterday, I believe, and he said that the reason this is happening is because Chuck Schumer is afraid of AOC coming up and primarying him in the upcoming election, so he's got to walk the line for the extremists. Do you agree with that?
I think a lot of what's going into this is, one, keeping crazy spending in the budget. They know we're clamping down on that, and they're going to keep trying to insist that that happens to appease their radical groups. And I do think there are allegations, there's coordination with leadership on the Democratic side and some of these radical nonprofit groups that are planning protests and all of these other things, and how this will play into that theatrical demonstration of the radical left. That is nonsense, and Republicans must stand up on behalf of the American taxpayer and the future of this country. And there are so many of us that have come here, taken time away from our families and our states to dedicate our lives to working on this issue and these issues that are really a part of making sure we remain the greatest country on earth.
All right. We will be watching drama here at the end of the month. Senator, thank you. We will be watching the implications of all of this. Ashley Moody in Washington, thank you so much.